afternoon and welcome back to Football League World TV. We've got the midweek preview for you this afternoon. I'm your host, Alfie Burns, and joining me are my two colleagues, Toby and Chris. Toby, how are you getting on this afternoon?
Yeah, good, thanks. As you say, another midweek show, really getting into that business end of the season where there's matches coming every few days and there's always plenty that matter. So, really exciting time to be sort of following the Football League at the minute. And yeah, going to be good to run over a few of them big games over the course of the show.
Absolutely. Chris, how are you?
Yeah, same. We're looking at the fixtures and there's just seems big games in all the leagues and it's getting really important now. So it's going to be an exciting few months.
Yeah, absolutely. We could have had about a 3-hour preview show this afternoon, but we haven't. We've whittled it down to just 6 games and we're streaming across Facebook, YouTube and Twitter this afternoon. So if you want to discuss any of the games that we're discussing, get yourself in the comments and we'll get your comments up on the show, get in your score predictions and just let us know if you're getting to a game in general. As we usually do, we're going to kick straight off with the Championship. We're going to start at the top of the division with Fulham, who take on Millwall in a London derby. Fulham leading the way in the Championship and in great form at the moment, and they're already looking a really strong bet to take home the title. But as Chris sort of alluded to right at the top of the show, there's some good games right across the Championship really this midweek, and a lot of Fulham's promotion rivals are taking each other on below them. So this is a big opportunity for Fulham to really sort of stretch their lead at the top of the table, would you say, Toby?
Yeah, definitely. As you say, I mean, they've already got a decent buffer to the to sort of the sides behind them. Obviously, 5 points ahead of Blackburn in second with a couple of games in hand on Rovers. So there's an opportunity there for them to really put some daylight in to the lead they have at the top of the table over the course of the next few weeks when those games in hand come along. And even before that, as you say, with the fixtures coming up over the course of the next couple of nights, Blackburn, Forest, QPR, Borough, Sheffield United, West Brom, there's a lot of teams not far behind the Cottagers in the chasing pack who are going to be taking points off each other there. So even before those games in hand come along, if Fulham can start picking up wins against, say, the likes of Millwall tonight, then there's a chance for them to really sort of lay the foundations for a strong end to the season that, as you say, should see them really quite comfortably over the line in the race for the title. And obviously, the thing that probably matters even more than that, which is just getting promoted and getting back to the Premier League, whichever way you can.
Yeah, absolutely. Marco Silva's side of playing well in defeat against Manchester City in the FA Cup at the weekend. As for Millwall, they've won only once on the road since mid-October and heading to the league leaders. It's an uphill task. Got there eventually for Gary Rowett's side. Chris, how are Millwall going to be able to hurt Fulham this evening?
Yeah, I think it's obviously going to be very difficult. So even the most optimistic Millwall fans are probably going to realise this is the home banker to many. So they're going to. The one positive they can take is, despite that poor away record that you've mentioned, a lot of the games have been tight. They tend to lose by the odd goal. So in theory, they're always in games. Obviously, Fulham are a class above most of the sides they've played. But I think we all know on the day Millwall can make it tough for the sides. They're well organised, they're physical, and you just have to hope that your defence is on it. Maybe Fulham aren't at their level, and then they're always a threat from set pieces. And if you can nick a goal, they can be tough to break down. So that's what I'm sure the game plan is going to be, to sit deep, to try and counter-attack and soak up the pressure that Fulham will put them under. But so it's going to be tough. But yes, they'll hope that they can nick a goal and maybe defend for their lives, really, and see how it goes.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see if Millwall can make it tough for Fulham and potentially upset the bookmakers. Let's get some predictions then. Chris, you up first?
Yeah, despite that, it's hard to see anything other than a Fulham win. I'll go 2-0 to Fulham.
And what about you, Toby?
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I think we saw sort of with Millwall in, say, a couple of their recent games, the West Brom winning sort of examples like that. They can make things hard for teams even at the top end of the table this season, but I do just think Fulham should have enough. I'm going to go 2-1 to Fulham.
We're going to bypass the rest of tonight's fixtures and look ahead to tomorrow. A couple of really good fixtures on the cards tomorrow in the Championship. We're going to start with Blackburn taking on Nottingham Forest. Blackburn, your club, obviously, Toby, have won just twice in their last 6 games. They're holding on to second at this moment in time, but a couple of missed opportunities in that. What's happening at the minute with Blackburn? What do you feel's going wrong for Tony Mowbray's side?
Oh, it's all that Sky pressure. Never got a great record on Sky Sports, and now that we're attracting that attention, pressure's putting on. But not away from that. I don't think this is a time yet to panic for Blackburn. As you say, it's just 2 wins in the last 6, and that's it's not what they'll have been wanting. It's not what they'll be having to produce if they are going to stay in this sort of position. But I think it was going to happen. I mean, they had an excellent run before this 2 wins in 6 that really got them into this position. And I don't think any team could maintain that forever. So, there was always going to be that drop off eventually. And, that there are sort of circumstances that can be taken into account here. I mean, I think the last couple of games, the goalless draw at Luton, Blackburn have never won at Kenilworth Road. They're going there without 4 key players in Ben Burton, Diaz, Joe Rothwell, Tyree Stolen and Harry Pickering. They then lost Teo Adoon and Sam Gallagher during the course of the game. So to sort of get out of there with a point was not terrible. And then obviously the Swansea game at the weekend, you sort of look at that and you think if Ben Burton Diaz is fully sharp and perhaps hadn't been away on international duty in South America and only got back a couple of days before, then he maybe would have been getting onto the chances that would fall into the likes of Daryl Lenihan and John Buckley, and we could have been talking about a very different result here. So yes, it's form that they will need to improve, but now that it seems like, judging from Tony Mowbray's comments in the press conference this morning, Ben Burton Diaz is ready to sort of really go again. It sounds like he'll be starting. He's going to want to really make an impact, obviously, against his former club Forest tomorrow night. So, I mean, like you say, there's the pressure. Pressure is obviously building on Rovers, and it's a bit out of their hands with QPR and Bournemouth just behind them have games in hand that if they win will take them above Blackburn regardless of what they do, and maybe that'll help them in terms of relieving a bit of the pressure. So, yeah, there's obviously it's a bit of a tough position for them to be in, but it's still a lot better than many people expected them to ever get close to back at the start of the season. So definitely no need to panic too much at this stage of the campaign.
It's a tough fixture, this one, though, against Nottingham Forest. They lost last time out in the Championship against Cardiff, which was quite a rare defeat at the start of 2022, but they've responded by absolutely battering Leicester in the FA Cup over the weekend. Chris, with those 2 performances in mind, Cardiff and then Leicester, which version of Nottingham Forest are we going to get, this midweek?
Yeah, I think, to be fair to Forest, the Cardiff performance, not necessarily, they obviously have dropped points, but the Cardiff performance was quite rare in the last few months because they have played well under Steve Cooper. I think even when they lost to Huddersfield, they were, if you look at the stats, they were by far the better team. But yeah, I think you can put that Cardiff one down to a one-off, but equally so, the Arsenal and Leicester Cup games have maybe given a false, maybe slightly misleading in the fact that people think Forest are incredible when, if you look at the form over the last 10 or 15 games, I think they're around 6th in the league. So they're obviously doing well, but they're also dropping points in places. So they are definitely beatable. So yeah, I think, as you say, it's going to be it's a tough game to call. I think for Forest, the Leicester game's got to give them confidence, hasn't it? I mean, the local derby, not the big one, but a big game for them, and the manner in which they played they just blew them away, didn't they? So that is going to give them confidence, and they'll enter this. They know the importance of this game in terms of trying to get into the playoffs. So yeah, it will be interesting to see which side turns up. But I think they have been consistent, and it's a tough one to call, really.
Yeah, absolutely. It should be a good game, and both teams could do with a win for different reasons. Let's get some predictions then. Toby, you can go first this time.
Yeah, as Chris says, it's a tough one to call. Forest are going to come into this one absolutely flying after that win at the weekend. But Blackburn have been really solid at home all season. Only Fulham and West Brom have won at Ewood Park in the Championship. So, they're going to be difficult to beat, you would expect, at Ewood Park. So I think even so, with, as we say, Brennan Johnson for Forest in excellent form, Brereton Diaz going to want to make a point against his old club, and, he's back fully fit and firing, or so we believe. So I think we could have an entertaining draw here, 2-2.
And what about you, Chris?
Yeah, I'm going for a draw as well. Sit on the fence. I'll go for 1-1.
Another entertaining game in the Championship tomorrow is Sheffield United hosting West Bromwich Albion. West Brom, of course, now under the tutelage of Steve Bruce, and that's going to be his first game in charge. But we're going to start with the home side, Sheffield United. Paul Heckingbottom's side have taken 10 points from a possible 12 since their kind of shock defeat to Derby County not that long ago. Toby, I'll start with you here, just discussing the Blades. This is a big chance for them to sort of really sort of pull themselves right up into the playoff conversation, if they're not already in that conversation.
Yeah, massively. I mean, you sort of look at the table now. If Sheffield United beat West Brom tomorrow night, then that's they go level on points with the Baggies, who are 6 at the minute, and they'll have 2 games in hand on West Brom as well. So that really puts them in a strong position then to sort of maybe push on and really establish themselves in that sort of top 6 fight that we sort of expected them to be in all the way back from the start of the season. I think sort of one interesting factor for Sheffield United, obviously it's a really disappointing one for them, is Brewster out for the rest of the season. It's such a shame for them and for him at that sort of time when you really thought he was coming into that sort of form that we'd sort of really all been expecting from him ever since he made the move to Bramall Lane. So that one's tough to take, and it's going to be interesting to sort of see what that does in terms of Sheffield United's attacking options. The likes of Ollie McBurney and David McGoldrick haven't really fired yet this season, so that maybe puts a lot of pressure on Billy Sharp at his stage of his career, as good as he has been. Can he, when you're playing this Saturday, Tuesday, that you are in the Championship, will he be able to maintain that at his age? And does that potentially bring Daniel Jebison into play, obviously recalled from Burton just at a time when he was really hitting some form on that loan deal in League One? So if he can sort of replicate that now in the Championship over the second half of the season, that sort of decision to bring him back could prove to be a bit of a masterstroke, and one that could really keep Sheffield Wednesday, moving along in the right direction at a time when they look to be clicking just when you want to be doing so. And we have obviously seen sides make those sort of late runs into the playoffs in the last few months of the season, and there's no reason why you feel that Sheffield United can't do that when you look at the sort of form they're in at the minute.
Yeah, the change at Bramall Lane has really worked. Paul Heckingbottom is doing a fine job at Bramall Lane. And I suppose we're about to see if West Brom's roll of the dice is going to work. Steve Bruce replacing Valerian Ismail in the dugout at the Hawthorns. This is going to be his first fixture in charge, returning to Bramall Lane, where he did have a stint as manager. Chris, we discussed Bruce yesterday on the debate show. What are we expecting to be different from West Brom tomorrow under Bruce?
Well, you probably start with the formation. We obviously don't know what he's going to play, but it wouldn't be a surprise to many of us if he did go with the back 4 and maybe a 4-3-3 or maybe even a 4-4-2. So that would be the obvious change, and then it would be interesting to see if he can get his ideas across to the players in such a short space of time. I think the general feeling is that he's working with a really talented squad, so it might be a case of just an arm around the shoulder for certain players to get them performing, which makes them a very dangerous prospect, because they do have a lot of, especially in attacking areas, they have a lot of talent in the pitch. So Sheffield United will know that whoever was in charge really, it's going to be a tough game, because Albion do have match winners all over the park. So it's a real tough test for Bruce as well for his first game. You're playing one of the most informed sides in the league, and he'll be under pressure because he's expected to get Albion in the mix for promotion. So it's a big game, and it'll be interesting to see how he does do after working with the players just for a few days.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of eyes on this fixture in the Championship. Let's get some predictions then, Chris.
I don't think a draw will be the end of the world for either side here. So I think it might be quite tight. I'll go for a 0-0 or a 1-1.
What about you, Toby?
Yeah, I'm sort of really inclined to follow Chris there. To be honest, I think Sheffield United are on a bit of a roll at the minute, but at the same time, you would expect the introduction of Bruce to give West Brom a bit of a lift, and I just do wonder whether that might cancel each other out a bit. So I'm going to go 1-1 as well.
Moving on to League One now, we're going to move across Sheffield as well, with Sheffield Wednesday's clash against Wigan Athletic next on the agenda. We'll start with Wednesday, who are in pretty efficient form at the moment. 3 wins on the trot, and their form at Hillsborough is very good as well. But Wigan sitting second in the table, obviously providing a stern test for Darren Moore's side. Chris, What are we expecting from Wednesday here against Wigan? You know, it's going to be a tough ask to continue this good run of form at Hillsborough against one of the division's leading sides, isn't it?
Oh, it is going to be tough, but I think this is we all expected Wednesday to be in the mix for maybe top 2 at the start of the season. I think they had a good transfer window. They look to have a good squad on paper, so there shouldn't be fear in this game. It should be an opportunity for them, especially at home, to show that this form. I think the last 2 games have been Morecambe and Burton, so not the bottom half sides maybe. So this is a real challenge, and it's one for the players to show that they are. This is like the hype is real about them, and they can put in a big performance against a big team, and I think they will be able to, because as you've touched on, that home form is the reason why they're sitting 7th, because away from home they've been far too inconsistent. But at Hillsborough, Moore has got it right. Then there seems to be a decent balance now between the team. I think Story came in at centre half, and Harley Dean obviously got injured in his first or second game, which was a blow. His second game, I think, which was a blow. But there does look to be a good balance to the side. Hutchinson's playing well in defence as well. So yeah, there's a lot to like about Wednesday now, and I think they've hit in form at the right time, and I'd expect them to kick on over the next few months.
Yeah, as for Wigan, they're obviously sitting second in the table at the minute, and they've almost got the title race in their own hands, given the games in hand that they've got. But they're juggling a busy schedule because of that build-up of fixtures that's coming their way, and they've drawn the last 2 league fixtures, and of course were knocked out of the FA Cup at the weekend. Toby, just on the Latics, are we seeing a few cracks?
I'm not convinced, if I'm being honest. I think maybe injuries are starting to take a bit of the toll. Obviously, Will Keane missed the last couple of games, and obviously he's been their top scorer this season. He's been outstanding, and you do feel as though they are starting to miss his influence a little bit. But as we've sort of mentioned with other clubs, every side is going to have a bit of a blip at some point this season, and it may well just be that this is Wigan's, and that is going to happen, and it's how they come out of that. As you say, the fact that they've got games in hand almost means that to some small extent they can afford to sort of take that chance and then recoup it later on with those games they've still got to pick points up in that other sides don't. And so I think there's still sort of reason for optimism there, and as you say, the sort of the elimination from the FA Cup at the weekend with the number of fixtures they've got piling up, that might not be the worst thing for them in terms of it saves them having to go out and play another game in the Cup, and really their focus ultimately has got to be on promotion. So that could end up being a sort of bit of a mini blessing in disguise. And then, once they get the likes of Keane back and Tom Pearce as well, who's an influence who's been missed, I think, through injury recently. So, it might just be a case of they have to ride this out a bit. And as all sides that are competing for promotion do, and as this Wigan team in particular have shown over the past few years with their resilience, you would expect them to sort of bounce back from that. So I still think they're in a pretty good position when it comes to the promotion race.
Let's get some predictions then. You up first, Toby?
Yeah, despite what I've just said there, I am actually leaning towards a Sheffield Wednesday narrow win here, just with the form they're in at the minute and sort of maybe the players that we're going to miss, in particularly up top. So I'm going to go 2-1 Sheffield Wednesday. Sorry
about that. I was interrupting your drink there. Chris, what's your prediction?
Yeah, I'm the same as Toby. I do expect Wigan to go up automatically, but I think the Owls will win this 3-1.
Good stuff. Over to Cheltenham versus Sunderland next. And we're going to start with Cheltenham before getting a little bit more in depth into Sunderland. But Cheltenham are without a win since late November. So Sunderland are facing them at a good time, but they're becoming something of draw specialists at home in the last few weeks. Chris, I'll start with you here. What kind of problems do you think that Cheltenham can cause the Black Cats this week?
Yeah, I think, like you mentioned there, that they haven't won, but as you said, there's a lot of draws, so they're a competitive team. They can keep it tight. I think they drew with Wigan and they lost 1-0 at Rotherham, and that was a real tight game. Rotherham didn't create many clear chances, so that's what Sunderland are up against: a solid defensive unit, a physical side, and at home we know that they can get results. So it's not going to be an easy game at all for Sunderland. I think you look at maybe the names of the clubs and you think Sunderland should win, and obviously they do have a lot more quality and depth in the squad. But yeah, I think this is a big game for Cheltenham, and I think they'll make it very difficult. So, and they won't. And as I've mentioned with that Wigan game and the Rotherham game, they won't be fearing Sunderland at all, which is right, because they've shown they can compete.
Yeah, Sunderland are, of course, managerless at the moment, and they lost to Doncaster at the weekend, which was obviously a shock result. It sounds like it's Roy Keane and Grant McCann in the frame, one of those two for the vacancy at the Stadium of Light. Toby, do you feel that Sunderland are really quite vulnerable whilst they're in this interim period?
Yeah, I think there's certainly an argument for that. Obviously, for starters, it sort of that the fact that it is quite up in the air in that sense means it's hard for I think Mike Dodds to really put his mark on the side when it seems like he's very much a temporary solution in the dugout. So that sort of makes it hard for him to really implement his setup. But I think as well, obviously, there's been a lot of talk about what the fans want in terms of who comes in at the Stadium of Light. But you've got to sort of think about as well. There's the issue of who the players want. This has a massive impact on them, and they'll obviously be keeping an eye on this. And is it going to be a distraction? There's all sorts of, as you say, different names in the frame, the likes of Roy Keane and Grant McCann, and players are going to be thinking, what impact is that going to have on my career? Am I going to suit their style? Are they going to text me? So there's all them sorts of things that are going to be in the back of their mind week in, week out. And is that could be a distraction in training. We don't know, and it's making it harder for them to work on the systems and the setups for games week in, week out, as we sort of maybe saw with the Doncaster game, where they really missed an opportunity there. So definitely, I think in that sense, it could be something that's falling into Cheltenham's hands maybe this evening. And I think with that, the fact that games are coming quite regularly here for Sunderland is probably not a great thing. They might have preferred there to be a bit of a week's break to give them that time to get a new manager and get that certainty laid down, and then give whoever's going to take over at the Stadium of Light that sort of opportunity to really make their own mark on this squad one way or another.
Yeah, Sunderland sitting fourth at the minute. Chris, just quickly, what are your thoughts? Do you think that Sunderland need to really hit the gas with getting a new manager in now?
Yeah, I do. I think the Doncaster performance was really concerning. And sometimes you think you maybe underestimate how important the manager can be, because you just think it's just down to the quality of the players. But the way they were against Doncaster was quite alarming, really. So, yeah, I think there's been a lot of speculation, and I think everyone's kind of expecting Roy Keane to take it. So you're just questioning why hasn't it happened, or if he's not taking it, why haven't they picked someone? So, yeah, they haven't done anyone any favours going into this. I think they should have looked to have it. You don't usually sack a manager until you've got the replacement lined up, and they clearly wasn't the case.
No, absolutely. An interesting fixture, this one. Let's get some predictions then. Chris?
Yeah, I think it'll be tight. I think it'll be 1-1. I'll go for 1-1, yeah.
And what about you, Toby?
Yeah, I'd sort of agree there. I think, Sunderland aren't coming into this in a particularly good shape at the minute, but Cheltenham are struggling to win. So again, that's another one that I can sort of see cancelling each other out. So I'll say 1-1 as well.
League Two finally on the agenda then, in an eye-catching game between Northampton and Newport. Northampton sitting fourth in the table heading into the midweek schedule, and Newport just behind them in fifth. We'll start with Northampton. They're piecing things together after a little blip in form, and they beat Walsall last time out in their last League Two fixture. Toby, can they edge themselves past a lot more competitive rival this week?
I think it's going to sort of be quite tough for Northampton. We've sort of seen it all season. It's sort of surprising for where they are in the table, just outside the automatic promotion places, that they've really struggled for goals this season. And I sort of said the other week on here that I was impressed with the attacking recruits they've made. But despite that, obviously, Walsall, with the shocking form that they're in at the minute, that might have been a really good opportunity to put down a marker in front of goal to sort of the other sides in the promotion race, and obviously they got the win, but it wasn't the most eye-catching one from a scoreline perspective. Just the 1-0 coming from the midfielder Mitch Pinnock. So it's not the most statement of intent of a scoreline, shall we say? So when you consider the fact that was against a team who really starting to rapidly slide down to the wrong end of the table, it's going to be a much bigger task for them, you would imagine, against a Newport side who are in excellent form at the minute, who are scoring goals quite regularly, and who know and who are used to this sort of playoff promotion race from the past few seasons. I can really see this being quite a challenging game for Northampton.
Yeah, it's going to definitely be a test of Northampton and whether they are truly back at or anywhere near their best. Newport had won 4 games on the bounce, but they were recently beaten by league leaders Forest Green Rovers. There's obviously no shame in that. Forest Green are the league leaders for a reason, and they've turned over plenty of teams this season. But Chris, do you think that Newport, need to learn from that to sort of get themselves past somebody that is above them in the table heading into this fixture?
No, I think they'll try and just brush that one off and forget it, really. I think the manner of the defeat was quite alarming. They were comfortably second best. It was only 2-0, but Forest Green did have chances to score a few more. So that would have been the concerning aspect for Newport. But I think it's just one of them. We know the games come thick and fast, and that's the beauty of the Football League, isn't it? So you just try and forget it and move on to the next one. And as Toby touched on earlier, it doesn't matter how you go up. If Newport are in the top 3, they won't care. That's what it's about. And second and third are firmly up for grabs, aren't they? So yeah, it's just one of those. As we've touched on, they're scoring goals, they're playing well. So I think they'll still be in high spirits, and they'll see this as a big chance to get back on track quickly. It might be good in a way to have a big game straight after what was a big game, because the players will still be focused and they'll be determined to put it right.
Absolutely. League Two, as it always seems to do, really cramming up at the top end of the division, and plenty of twists and turns to come. Let's get some predictions for this game then. Toby?
Yeah, I'm going to go for Newport. Obviously, they're coming off a bit of a disappointing result against Forest Green, but they do just seem to be sort of in a bit of a league of their own in League Two this season. So I don't think Newport needs to panic massively about that. And, with the goals they've got in comparison to a Northampton, I think they should have enough to see this one through. So I'll go Newport 2-0.
And what about you, Chris?
Yeah, I think the same. I think it'll be 2-1 to Newport. It's obviously going to be a tight game, but I think they've just got enough to edge it.
Well, that concludes this afternoon's midweek preview. Thanks to Toby and Chris for joining me, and anybody that's joined us getting themselves in the comments and that kind of thing. It's always good to hear from you. Coming up on Football League World TV later in the week, we've got a couple of debate shows coming your way before we review the midweek action on Thursday. So we will hopefully see you all again soon.